Well, today was interesting. So, I got my milk as per usual. Tomorrow I start working again. I had about 4 days off, and now I have to go back. So if you couldn't figure, I'm very, very excited about that. I come to you today once more to talk about the struggle of being an artist with ADHD, featuring my sketchbook, which I'm only about not even like a quarter of the way through, and it's been like a month. I'm gonna ramble to you about the frustration of that. I think the best thing to do is start at the beginning. What was it like growing up as a kid with ADHD? Because when I was growing up, I was always interested in art. That was always my interest. I remember being, I don't know, like 8 or 9, like I remember watching the artist animation community on YouTube, and I would make my own like YouTube videos and make like animations on MS Paint because I was a kid at that time, and I was specifically watching animations that were made in Flash and MS Paint, and so I like taught myself to do frame by frame animations on MS Paint, and I remember doing that a lot. And I would use my toys to make characters for different stories that I would then post on my own YouTube channel. I specifically remember I made a friend on YouTube back when you could like, I think you could like DM people. You can message people on YouTube. That used to be a feature. And there was a friend that I made that we would message each other back and forth because we both made YouTube videos using toys in like kind of the same toy. It was my Amoebas. It was the one that I would use, and she used the same one, my Amoebas. So we would do that. So I've always had an interest in drawing, and I've always done drawing or art in some form. Growing up, I remember looking up to some artists, and I remember clearly wanting to draw as good as they were. But I don't ever remember being necessarily like sad about it. I just remember being so excited to be able to draw like them, and that was my primary motivation for being in the artist community, just being so excited to see more art and see good art. I don't know what happened to that. Another thing that is also very interesting, and I've seen people say that they got in trouble because of this, but I guess I was lucky because it never happened to me. I couldn't focus very well in class on account of ADHD, so I would draw a lot during class. So like when we had like class lectures and shit, I would be doing the notes for the class, but simultaneously as drawing. So I would do both at once. I've read a lot of stories of people like getting in trouble by their teachers, and their teachers like humiliating them and shit. Like I said, I got lucky in that arena. Me drawing in class allowed me to actually pass the class, so I think the teachers let me off easy for the most part. I still got in a lot of trouble because I wasn't doing my homework and I wasn't studying, so I did get in some trouble because of that. But not I was smart, but I wasn't applying myself good enough. So I did get in trouble like that, but I don't recall ever the art being the source of my trouble, if that makes sense. I think I'm partially making this video to vent, but I'm also partially making it because I feel like I'm not the only one that experienced issues with being an artist and having ADHD, especially like growing up with the ADHD not being diagnosed, trying to make art when you are not diagnosed and you have like a disability. In present day, I can't really rely on school to draw, and I'm also bipolar, and I'm medicated, so I can't I also can't rely on mania, which I relied on mania a lot to draw as well. So both of those are out the window, so I can't rely on those things. I think the hardest part of having ADHD and making art is trying to have a routine. Trying to focus for long periods of time or finish artworks and finish art pieces consistently is like near impossible. I've tried so hard to do it with my own self-imposed structures. I've tried so hard, and I haven't been able to do it. When I was in school and I was getting my associate's degree in animation, I was able to do homework because, you know, it was something that I was interested in, and because, you know, there's a set deadline. It's like, well, this homework is due next week. Have it done by then. And I was like, okay. And that was easy to do. So if I have someone that's expecting art from me, I'm able to do it. But on my own, good luck. For some reason, my motivation these past few years to make art consistently, it's been like pulling out teeth. It's been so difficult. I don't recall being little and having this much difficulty making art. And I've fought with myself back and forth a lot of times, thinking like, oh, well, maybe I just don't have an interest in art anymore, which is fine. I mean, you grow up and your interests change, but like, if I'm gonna be real with you, if it was truly that I didn't have an interest in it anymore, I wouldn't be so worried about it, because I do still want to make art, and I still do like art. So it's not that there's not an interest, it's just that actually creating art and drawing is so difficult. And I don't think I realize how difficult it is. How are you supposed to finish an art piece if you can only focus in like little chunks of time? You can only sit and draw for about at like 30 minutes at most, and then I have to stop. And then that's it. I mean, if you have a painting, each painting that I do, it takes me at least like a couple of hours, unless I hyper focus and I sit and I do it all in one go, which sometimes I do. Sometimes I hyper focus and then I finish the art piece, but most of the time I don't. So if I want to finish a piece of art, I will start it, work on it for a little bit, and then stop, and then I don't touch it again for a while. You know, if paintings take several hours to complete, you can only focus for a few minutes at a time. That's very demoralizing. I think it's interesting because now that I'm older, I think I look back retroactively and I'm like, how is it that when I was younger, I was able to complete any artworks at all? And I had ADHD when I was younger, and I had issues focusing when I was younger too. I didn't just start having issues. So I started to wonder if like, okay, is it entirely the ADHD, or is there like more layers to it? Or is it both? I think one of the hugest things that is preventing me from actually making art is that my self-esteem is just fucking destroyed. I got social media, Instagram, when I was 13, and I went into the ranks of, you know, Instagram artists, and I was very active on social media for artists, and, you know, there were a lot of new artists that I found, and it really excited me to find a whole bunch of new artists and people my age who were passionately posting their art online. But at some point, this stopped exciting me, and it started to really discourage me, because now all of a sudden I could see artists who are my same age who were like 15 times more talented than I ever was, and are able to churn out 15 times more artwork than I ever could because they can focus for longer than I can. And then, you know, once I made it into high school, I remember feeling so depressed. Well, I already had like clinical depression, so that was part of it. But me comparing myself to other artists on social media made it even worse, because I was like, everyone that I see on social media seems to work harder and better than I am. I think I always justified staying on Instagram because I wanted to take inspiration and have inspiration from artists that I saw on social media. So I always hesitated to step away from it, because it's like, well, I want to be engaged with the community and see other artists, because how is my art going to grow without seeing other professionals to take inspiration to? But in reality, what staying on social media has caused is comparison, more comparison, and it's completely destroyed my self-esteem and my motivation to do art. Obviously, the ADHD and the struggles that come with it are there because I've always had issues with focusing, but now I'm not just fighting the focus. I'm fighting like this emotional wall that it took years for me to build, of comparing myself to people who are now I'm comparing myself to people who are my age and younger than I am, who are 15 times more talented. I'm 24. So that means I've been comparing myself to other artists and hammering down my self-esteem for like a decade now. For a decade. I finished my associates in 2021, and I've been in like an awful art block since then, for the past like 3-4 years. Well, 2021 to 2024 is 3 years. And for a while, I was like, why can't I draw anymore? I don't understand why it's so difficult just to get me to do anything. And I really beat myself up about that for a while. But it's like, well, to be fair, you've spent a decade basically taking your own self-esteem and throwing it in the garbage, and you're expecting that you're just going to be okay with that. It really sucks because I feel like I gaslit myself for a while, being like, well, maybe I've just lost passion for something that I've always liked, and that's why I'm not drawing as much anymore. In reality, it's just that like my expectations are extremely high, and I'm expecting myself to work like a neurotypical person, which I've never been able to do. Ever. Where to go from here? Well, it sucks being an adult and having a lot of responsibilities. I'm finishing my bachelor's, so I'm going to school full-time, and then I work full-time. And then I also live on my own. I'm independent, so I have to do all my chores by myself. So being an adult, it means you have almost zero time for fucking anything. Drawing eats a lot of time, and I don't have as much time as I used to, unfortunately. The only thing I can think to resolve this is to establish a new set of standards. And I think the one that I'm going to stick with is to just draw as much as you can, when you can. Not any particular amount, not expecting that, okay, I need to draw for at least 2 hours every day or I'm screwed. No, just draw anything for the smallest amount of time. Even if, some days I've been drawing in this sketchbook, some days I literally am so tired that the only thing I can draw is fucking circles. Let me show this to you. I drew circles because that's how tired I was. But I was like, I'm drawing, look. I'm doing the art. Circles is better than nothing. So, as far as I'm concerned, I'll take the fucking circles. Trying to figure out how to work and be creative when you have little focus and little time. I don't quite know how to do this. The only thing I can think of is using a calendar and scheduling out a time, but that has been relatively difficult for me because I'm just not that good at following a set schedule. I'm very flexible with the way that I do things. It's like, okay, I'm going to do this thing for maybe 10 minutes. I might do it for shorter, I might do it for longer. So having like a set designated time for drawing hasn't really worked out the few times that I've tried to implement it, because some days I just don't follow the schedule. I just refuse to do it. And I don't know if that's just a moral failing on my part, or I just can't stick to a schedule, or I don't know what it is, but trying to set up a fixed time each day hasn't worked for me. So now what I've stuck to doing is just drawing whenever I have like a little bit of free time. So I bring my sketchbook with me everywhere. Even though he is a little bit of a big boy, I have a big backpack, so I just shove him in my backpack. And if I feel like drawing on the train, I'll draw on the train. If I feel like drawing, before I work with the public, so before my job place opens up, then I'll draw there. If I don't feel like drawing there, I only feel like drawing at home, then I'll draw at home. And it doesn't really matter where I draw. If I draw on my desk, then I draw on my desk. If I draw on my bed, then I'll draw on my bed. If you're trying to get yourself to draw, it might be helpful, instead of working against your body and working against your brain, to instead try to just work with it, because I've found that trying to force myself to do things ends up making it hard for me to stay consistent, and then I end up giving up on it. So no point in forcing myself to do a schedule that I don't stick to, that I know I'm not going to stick to. Instead of forcing myself to have a rigid schedule, being flexible has ended up helping me more. Obviously, maybe other people with ADHD find the exact opposite, where they find that having flexibility actually makes them less likely to follow through. So I guess this depends heavily on person, but for me in particular, I found that this is what has worked for me. Medication and therapy. I am trying a new medication, guanfacine, but honestly, the medications that I have tried have not really had much of an effect, if I'm gonna be real with you. So I'm not gonna rely on the medication working to solve these problems for me. I doubt that at this point I'm gonna find a medication that will be helpful at all. And therapy, I was in therapy for a while. It didn't really help, but maybe I'll try to look for another therapist that maybe specializes in ADHD. Maybe, but to be frank, I am kind of tired, and I'm only ranting and rambling a little bit because I felt kind of depressed and I felt kind of sad about my relationship with my art and being creative as of late. And I figured I might as well talk about it because I doubt I'm the only one that deals with this. And I doubt I'm the only one that feels upset about my performance with being a creative person. I guess the other thing that I ought to bring up is trying to do art and be creative when you're burnt out. I've been burnt out for a long time. I mean, to be frank, you need to work full time in order to survive in this day and age. You literally can't get around it. I've found that the 9 to 5 schedule has burnt me out time and time again, and it's partially my fault because I'm not good at regulating my focus, and I'm not good at regulating the amount of effort that I put into work, and that's probably contributing to the burnout. Regulation is an executive function, which ADHD people are known to not have the greatest executive function. So probably it makes sense why I'm so exhausted and so tired all the goddamn time. But even knowing this, that doesn't really help because I still want to make art and I still want to draw and I still want to, do the things that I like. But, these additional challenges just make it much harder to do those things. I would like to say something positive, like, don't give up hope, or it'll get better, or something like that, but frankly, I don't feel particularly happy. Okay, well, thank you for watching. I don't really have anything else to talk about. That was the bulk of it, so, I don't know, hopefully someone out there will relate to the struggle, or if you have any tips yourself that you've tried, maybe put it down in the comments. If not, have a good rest of your day, night, whatever. Once again, I'm sorry for the noise, but I only feel like filming when I'm drinking coffee, it seems like. So I guess that's where we're at. I feel like I should make an update because I filmed that video, I think in April? The first part, I filmed the video in April 2024, and it is now almost a year later. It is March 2025. I am now 25, obviously. I still feel like I relate to some of the things that I said. I still feel like I struggle, but I will comment that it did get a little bit better. I started drawing more frequently because I figured out that the hugest reason why it was so hard to focus on art was because the way I was trying to do art was not great. Because my type of art that I really like is art that is like highly detailed, which, not to say that ADHD people can't do like detailed art, but like sitting and focusing on like hyper specific details is very much, at least for me, a neurotypical thing to do. Like, you have to have a lot of focus in order to sit and do a drawing. One drawing for hours. So I figured out that the
best way for me to focus and to actually get myself to draw more often is to draw each drawing as quickly as possible. So most of my drawings now, they take like under 10 minutes. And for sketches, like 2 minutes at most. So I'll show an example. I have two sketchbooks. I have this one for my newest hyperfixation, which is acrylic markers. And then I have this one, which is my doodle sketchbook. So, you know, it's a little bit rougher, obviously. You know, the drawings aren't as pretty as my old art, which at first when I started drawing the quicker way, I felt discouraged because I was like, well, it's not as good as my old art. And, you know, when I tried as much as possible to draw for longer periods of time, which was a struggle, but, like, I draw, because I do this quick art style and this quick way of drawing, I draw much more frequently than I would otherwise. Like, I'm already, like, you can't really see it very well. I'm already over halfway done with this sketchbook. And I started it, like, the beginning of February. So it's been a month. I'm not finishing it, you know, as fast as I would like, but I'm still making significantly more art than before. I also changed my art to following my newest hyperfixation. So if I have a particular hyperfixation on a type of art, I tend to just pivot and do that kind of art, regardless if I feel like I shouldn't be doing that kind of art. So my newest hyperfixation is acrylic drawings, which, like I said, they're done very quickly. Each one takes about like 10 minutes, which is not very long, and they're not particularly very, like I said, they're not particularly very detailed either. Like, they're very, you know, simple flat colors, but, you know, with no shading or anything. But like I said, I mean, I'm already, like, I started this, when did I start it? I started this on the 25th of February. So it's been only 1 week, and I'm already, like, a quarter of the way through. So, you know, that, like I said, I'm making much more art than I was before, just by changing the way that I approach doing art. So I think that's a net positive. The other thing is I did find a new medication that is helping a little bit more than before, which is the Concerta. My doctor says she's still not satisfied with how long I'm focusing for. I'm only focusing for about 4 hours in the morning, which is when I take it, and she wants me to be up to 8 hours. And I talked about this, I think, a little bit in my other video. I can't really choose what task I focus on either. So if I need to focus on something that I don't want to do, that is still really difficult. I still can't force myself to do certain things, and choosing when I feel like drawing, I can't make I can't choose a specific time or specific day to sit and draw. Like, it just doesn't work. If I don't feel like drawing, I'm not gonna draw. I still kind of can't follow, like, a consistent schedule, but now that I'm not forcing myself as much to do things that I don't want to do, it's ironically been much easier to do more things. I think a net positive, things have improved since the time I made that video. I was not very happy. I remember when I made that video, I was very unhappy, but I feel like my situation has improved a little bit. I also got into subsidized housing, so I don't have to work full-time currently. I did burn out again from my previous job, but I'm gonna be returning this week on a part-time basis, so I'm hoping that I'll be able to avoid burnout again now that I'm not forced to work full-time. But yeah, I thought I'd just film an update and just stick that at the end here. So I don't know, let me know your thoughts. Let me know if you related to any of this, or if you have any tips or things that help you. But it was nice talking to you all. Have a good rest of your week, day, night, whatever. Bye.